This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, JM Ryerson.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Let's Go Win podcast, where our intention every time we come on here is to help you be happy, healthy, wealthy. Now, the young lady I'm going to bring on today is absolutely going to help in all of those areas because she's really good at what she does. Angie Wisdom is a master certified coach, the author of the Non-Negotiable You, which is coming out very soon, and creator of the Morning Mindset Journal. She is a speaker and co-owner of a global alternative investment firm. Angie, how are you?
I'm great, JM. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. You know, it's so interesting. I rarely ask that. That's such a filler thing to say, how are you? Because the truth is, I want to know what's good, what's new, and you have some exciting stuff happening right now.
I do. But truth be told, I'm really good. But, yes, a lot of good things happening right now. Matter of fact, tomorrow is the big day for the book launch.
I'm excited for you because that is a hell of a lot of work. Congratulations. And tell me about the Non-Negotiable You. I love the title because I talk about non-negotiables often. This is definitely verbiage that I want everyone to be aware of, have some self-awareness around, but often we don't know what those are. So often we compromise, and that's when we feel so crappy. So tell me about Non-Negotiable You. Let's see if I'm tracking what your title of your book is.
Okay, absolutely. Well, to kind of give you a little bit of a background, it came through the process of my foundational belief. And I know it sounds cliche, but like you're truly capable of anything you want to accomplish. I've always believed that, but I was constantly going like, well, who do you have to be to accomplish all of that? We're not just like, go out and do it. There are certain characteristics and what I call non-negotiable pieces of that best version of you that makes you have those capabilities to accomplish whatever you want. So I, like you, use this with my clients a lot about like what's non-negotiable. And some of those pieces are, one, knowing what your values are and taking responsibility to fill yourself up with them every day. Being able to master your mindset so that your mind is not controlling you. Being able to trust yourself, being able to lead yourself, being honest with yourself, so many different components that ultimately make you look to yourself for answers and guidance and show up with authenticity to take that action.
So it's not a cliche for me because this is the exact same idea that I have. And it started, I think, watching Back to the Future when Doc Brown said, Marty, you can accomplish anything you set your mind to. And I don't know why. It just stuck. I was like, that's so true. I love I love the trust yourself because I find so often this is where people get tripped up, where they know it's not right. And yet they can't seem to follow it. Now I'll give you a quick example, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I recently met a woman who, I don't know, she's worth 150, 500 million. I really don't know. It's a lot. So she's had success. Now, I was watching and observing her for a good week, and I observed from some very narcissistic behaviors, some very not being kind to others, not necessarily adhering to what the agreed upon how we were going to behave. And yet I found myself saying, okay, this woman could really accelerate my career. Therefore, I'm going to look past all these things that she does. And I did it for about 3 days, Angie, and it felt horrible. And I finally told my wife, I was like, nope, I don't care. I don't care if she could literally put me in front of everyone media wise to launch, let's go into that next stratosphere. I don't care because it didn't feel good. What say you on this? Because this is a fascinating idea for me. This was a non-negotiable, the way she was treating people, including myself. yet I was almost willing to look past all that because of financial reward.
Yeah. I mean, I hear two things in there, right? One, you probably have a value of integrity and high moral standards that was showing up, but also this, yeah, I mean, we can be lured to something short term, and that looks attractive, and those emotions and feelings come out, of like, oh, this could be amazing, but it's that long-term perspective and understanding what you value that had you going, no, I've got to, totally abort this mission here, right? But I think the trust aspect of it for people, it's like, if you don't trust yourself, then how do you make decisions? How do you lead yourself? How do you become, able to accomplish anything you want? You have to have self-trust. And people end up falling into this gap or this place all the time where they're constantly seeking external advice and validation and wondering what people think. And all of that is because they're constantly going to external sources for that instead of trusting themselves. So I think to be that non-negotiable version of you, you've got to look to yourself first, and you've got to trust that. And, I mean, there's moments, right? Like 3 days for you, it took you a couple of days, but in the end, you went back to that trust. You knew it wasn't right for you.
Yeah. But gosh, the financial rewards, that carrot, it's dangling. And I think what I really am trying to get across to the audience, and this is where I would love your, I don't know if maybe it is a validation. Maybe it's just hey, this has been my experience, but let's say I follow through with this and I were to really let her catapult the career. What I have found when I do that, everything starts to get kind of ugly. It doesn't go the way that I really want it to be fulfilling and amazing and everything that Let's Go Win is today, because I compromised so much of who I was, because I said, you know what, I'm going to look past all that. She could really benefit me. Is that when we arrive at that place? Because I've done this at other companies, so we're clear.
Yeah.
Have you found that that's what happens? Is it's not fulfilling and now it's kind of ugly? I don't know. Just where do you land on it? If you took path A, followed the easy path, quote unquote, to stardom, and yet realize, oh man, this isn't what I signed up for. What have you seen, Angie?
I see that you end up where you're talking about, in this place of like, maybe you feel a little lost, you feel stuck, you're not satisfied, you're unhappy, because basically you've gone in conflict with your values. For you value this integrity, you value these moral standards, and you're honoring your authenticity when you follow what you believe in, but you deviate from that maybe because of that financial opportunity. But in the long run, it's only going to get you so far. You're going to have those other values creeping back up, and they're going to be going, hey, JM, we're out of integrity here. And that does not feel good. So I think, yeah, it's really important for, the listeners in the audience to understand that what you value most has to be prioritized over, those little short-term kind of excitement opportunities. Because if that's not really what you value over your integrity, your authenticity, then you're going to end up at a place feeling unfulfilled.
How does one go about figuring their values? And this is not a simple question, because I think this is the part where people are like, yeah, I know who I am, but maybe they're not crystal clear. Maybe they don't define it to a place where everyone knows, look, these are my boundaries. These are my non-negotiables. Because again, I'll use myself as the example. There's been friendships that have been created that I did look past and compromise on values because they're super fun, man. And they're popular, and it's a cool neighbor, and I have a great time until I get home and I realize that wasn't all that good. Actually, truth was, it was FOMO is why I chose to go, is I didn't want to miss out on hanging out with all the buddies.
Right.
How does one really clearly define those values and set these non-negotiables? And is it our job to tell everybody like, hey, this is who I am, so we're clear?
Well, the whole value conversation, I love that we're talking about this because I approach values from a little bit of a different perspective, in a sense of like what fills you up. And, think about like what you do in your life that makes you feel like you're unstoppable, that you are in this great place, everything's flowing, everything feels right on track. That means you're getting your values in. So for me, values, they could be peace and tranquility, they could be accomplishment, spiritual, freedom, different things that really I need every single day on a daily basis. So you have to know what those are, because how else do you make decisions, right? If you know your value is, high moral standards and personal growth and development or something, and then you're faced with this opportunity, you're like, yeah, doesn't quite line up with those values. It's a no for me. So it becomes this filter and this compass for you to make decisions. But to your original question, how do you figure them out? You do this instant check of going, when I'm doing something, what makes me feel great? When I feel great, what am I doing? And you may say, I'm with family, or I'm competing, I'm accomplishing, I'm out in nature, those type of things that fill you up. Those are your values. Another way to really find out what they are is think back to a past memory or experience and go, man, when did I feel like amazing? When did I feel like I was on top of the world? What was I doing? Who was I doing it with? And why did I feel that way? And you start to uncover your values and go, oh, wow, when I used to compete in gymnastics, I felt amazing. Well, I was competing, I was being challenged, I was doing something healthy. So those are probably some of my values. That makes sense?
No, it makes total sense. I love and I mean this again, I love simplicity. It's an easy gauge to say,
it
okay,
is.
I went out drinking with buddies and I had a great time, but now I'm feeling like crap for several days later. Maybe that's not something I value. However, the social aspect, I go out with friends and we just go chat long and hard on a deep subject. Oh, now I'm really fulfilled. I'm on a high for like several days. That makes a ton of sense to me, because both of those examples have happened for me. Right. Again, where it's like, did I have a great time drinking with the buddies? Yes. And did I feel not physically ill, but did I feel bad about myself for several days later? And was that worth the trade-off? No. So I love that gauge. I think that's amazing. Clearly, you've gone down. Yes, you've gone down a path of coaching. I mean, you're master certified coach, which, by the way, that's not easy to obtain, guys. This is like a small percentage of people that do this. You have several other designations. When did you say, you know what? Not only am I going to be a coach, but I'm going to be a badass master certified coach? What did that journey look like for you to get to that place?
I'm when you think about values, I like accomplishment. I'm a challenger and I love to accomplish. So when I decided to become a coach, I remember deciding like this was my career path and this is what I wanted to do. And I was like, what's the highest level I can get to? Like that was my first natural thought was, okay, well, what's the top level? What do I have to do to get there? And it was my mission from day one, even though it seemed like so far away, how many hours you have to coach and call submissions and audits and all these things. It was like, okay, well, let's plug away one day at a time. It's just kind of how my mind operates. And I be completely honest, I like certifications. I like to be kind of acknowledged for understanding and reaching a certain kind of benchmark.
All right. I love that. And clearly competition, accomplishment. I'm hearing this, right? I'm not sure if the gymnast you were talking about was you. Was that you growing up being a gymnast?
It was me. Yes. Yep.
All right. So standing on the medal stand, big deal. Getting those, that's a big deal. I get it. I want to cruise to the morning mindset journal. Start with you. Now, anybody that's listened to my show for any amount of time knows my mornings are sacred. This is time for me to focus on me so I can show up as the best version of me. Tell me about what yours looks like. What is that morning mindset journal? What does it encompass? And why is that so important and impactful that you, again, did another book. This is out there for people. So clearly it was important to you.
It was, and we share very similar belief in that. Like, you've got to conquer your morning. I'm a firm believer that you have to tend to yourself before you tend to anybody else, and proactively create your day, or you're gonna get what you get stuck with. You know, I always say, like, do you go to Starbucks and order what you want, or do you just show up at the window and say, you know, just give me whatever you like to give me today? That's the difference in creating your day in the morning, or, you know, just letting your day happen to you. But the journal has certain prompts that all tie to the non-negotiable you. When I created, you know, this philosophy and methodology for my clients that I've taken them through for years, it was like, well, if I want to teach them to trust themselves, and I want to teach them to be able to control their mindset, to be accountable, like all these different components, I have to give them a way to practice it. I didn't want them to just know, oh, well, here's your teaching and this is what you should do, learn it, and then just go use it. Because you know how that is. I mean, people read things and we get the knowledge, but it doesn't mean you actually implement it, integrate it into your life. So the morning mindset journal was that way to practice it. If you sat down, you created your day, and you were able to say, like, how do I feel and what do I want to do about it? Bam. First question, awareness and empowerment. You know, you're starting your day, figuring out how you feel and what you're empowered to do about it. You set some intentions. What do you want out of this day? It's your day. Decide what you want from it. Then you get into gratitude. We're controlling our mind. We're teaching our mind what to be thankful for. We're looking for different possibilities. I get into prayer as far as asking for what you want, visualization for picturing your day. And then my favorite part is that end of day reflection, where you actually become your own coach. You go and you find out, did I say what I was going to do? Where did I find the joy? Where did I find my wins? Because all of that is so key in being able to get that 1% level up every single day.
All right. So the question, this is the $1 million question for me as a coach. How many of your clients, when you give them this gold, because it is, I've never actually seen it, but everything you just explained, I know the power of this tool and what you can accomplish if you follow it. So my question is, if you, Angie, give it to 100 of your clients, how many are actually following through with it? I'm just, 75%. Let's start there. Wow.
Yep, 75%.
Okay.
Wow, is in good or bad?
Wow is incredible. I am so proud of you. That's amazing. So you clearly have them bought in, right? That they're going to do this. And the reason I say that, guys, is because if she gets 75% of them to do it, 75% will accomplish why they hired her to begin with. The other 25% didn't. And this is my greatest frustration as a coach right here. It's also why I will always have a job. But tell me how you get 75%, because I'm in awe. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. You know, I mean, once they understand a concept, like if we talk about self-awareness, and they understand how important it is, it's like they read the book on it. We've done some coaching. They're like, oh, that makes so much sense. Now I'm like, how are you going to practice that every day? So they understand that, like, in order to get better at something, you have to practice it. Now, if you can go out there and just practice being self-aware every day and be accountable to it, great. Let me know how that works. But most people, you know, you forget, you go about your regular day. So it's their way of almost like taking their vitamins. Look, take your vitamins first thing in the morning, get your self-awareness, your mindset, your intentions, all this stuff in, and you're like programming your mind right out of the beginning of the day, and you carry it with you. So I think people have that desire, once they understand the concept and why this is important, to at least try it. And the beauty about the practice is within one day, you get something. So at minimum, people say, oh, I felt so much more controlled and focused in my day, and I felt accomplished. And you get that little bit of like excitement from it. So you're like, I think I'll try this for another day. So you get that instant feedback and reward that keeps you doing it. But truthfully, people fall off. And I can see it immediately. Someone will say to me, yeah, I don't know, I've just kind of been in a funk lately and I don't feel very productive. I'm like, how's your morning mindset going? And I'm like, well, it was really good. And then I felt like I was really good. And so I quit doing it. And it's like clockwork. Every time someone is off in an area, they're not doing the morning mindset.
So I'm laughing, not at, it's not funny, yet it is I told you it's my greatest frustration. So I want everybody to hear
Yeah.
this. Okay.
Yeah.
What she just said is so true. I'm feeling so good. I just stopped. That's
Yeah.
where, as a coach, like, wait a minute. I had a professional golfer. We were working on what mine's called the Champions Daily Playbook. I don't know how similar, but similar idea. And I
Right.
said, are you following through? And she says, no, I'm doing so well. I didn't need to. Well, guess what? We start missing cuts again.
Yeah.
That's where I'm just like, why? Please, I want people to hear this right now. These are habits. What she is talking about are creating habits. And when you see the gains, don't back off. Continue, push forward, make this a part of your identity so that you don't have to slide back into unhappiness, being overweight, whatever the thing is that you're going through. The fall off, is it simply because people get complacent? It's not a lack of motivation. I don't believe that to be the case. This is the part, and we're going to figure this out. I want to see what you found, because that 25% that definitely fell off, they're either going to be clients with you for life, or you're just never going to see them again. It's one or the other, because they're not taking the tools as seriously as you want. So how do you get them back on track and really get them to dive back in?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. And one, just to follow up on what you said a minute ago, I tell people all the time, this is not medicine to get you better and to get you, out of the rut that you're in. This is just a way of life. This is like, your daily vitamins, your oxygen, your water. It's like, it's a new way of living and showing up, not, the medicine that's going to get you out of this state of, like you said, not going to the gym or not performing in work or your hobby, whatever it may be. So I think that's really important too, to realize it's not a short-term fix. But I think people fall off or don't even begin to do it for a few reasons. Number one, and you may experience this too, because we both work with like high achievers, is that they're doing okay without it, right? Success, and they're doing okay. So it's kind of like, well, it's not that big of a deal. I'm doing okay without having to carve out these 10 minutes first thing in the morning. So I think there's a little bit of that, but I think people fall off of it because our minds control us, right? And you wake up and you're like, oh, I've got so much to do today, I don't have time. Or you end up picking up your phone and you see that email and that drags you, onto your course of the day. But, ultimately, I think people think that they want the freedom to start like their day however they want. And they don't want this like, oh, I have to do this structure and I have to do this process. But it's the complete opposite. You doing this is your freedom. You're setting yourself up to have a day the way you want it. So I think it feels a little bit like restricting to some people to really have to carve out and sit down and do this every day. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. Look, there's a couple things you said that I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Discipline equals freedom. Okay. I hope everyone hear it again. Discipline equals freedom. Everything you want is there, but you have to put in that time. The identity part, what I loved what you said, often people be like, are you a life coach? And I'll say, well, if you were to add lifestyle coach, then yes, 100% I'm that. Because if this is a part of your lifestyle, I'm in. But if you just want me to come up, rah, get you going, and then you're just going to fall back off, I'm not. Because to your point, the higher achievers, they've hit this level, but then they're not fulfilled. And the truth is, look, you're owed, it's your birthright to truly be abundant, to truly be fulfilled. But that does mean we have to take this as part of my identity. God, I could talk forever on this subject because
Me too.
I have a 17-year-old that is an amazing tennis player, amazing kid. But I just told him last night, I said, bud, I can't want it more for you.
Yeah.
You have to want it. And so set him up a checklist. He's got the books. I mean, he's got me talking to him, and yet he has to walk through that door. And I've had to let go of that as a coach to really put it on them to say, look, this is why you're paying me X amount of dollars, because there's something missing. And until you take it as your identity, we're just not going to get there.
So true.
Man.
I have to tell you, you're talking about your son. I put a picture on Instagram this morning. My son is 19, and as a coach and a parent, you have to kind of walk that line carefully. And on his nightstand was my new book, The Morning Mindset Journal, and like a couple other books. And he's got his morning routine. I never said you've got to create this morning routine. If I did, he probably would have never done it. But it's really neat to see. So maybe it's at 19, and they start just making those decisions because of what they've seen transpire in the people who have done it, or maybe just hearing you talk about it to somebody else. But it's a pretty special thing when somebody at that age, where they start, like you said, taking responsibility, wanting it more for themselves than you want it for them. And it happens. It definitely happens early.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up your son, that because often if we're talking, it can come off as, my wife has even said, get off your soapbox. And I tell her all the time, honey, it is not me thinking I'm better than at all. This is me sharing things that I've learned that I'm passionate about. And my question or thought to you is, you're a human being. You're not perfect. Therefore, everything that you write about, talk about, speak about, you make mistakes too. And I think that's a misnomer about coaches. I don't care who you put on a pedestal, Tony Robbins or Jim Rohn, or name the gurus. They're human and they make mistakes too. They're simply sharing information. How do you kind of address that with, whether it's your clients or your spouse or your kids, to say, look, this isn't me being on a soapbox. I'm simply sharing information that I'm passionate about.
Yeah, I think I always am the first to admit, like, I have zero issues with admitting when I'm wrong, with apologizing and being vulnerable in that space. I tell my clients if I did something, that was off or missed something. So I think creating that space for people to see, like, we are not some kind of like perfect because we're a coach, we know how to do everything right. Absolutely not. And I share it all the time. When I misstep, when I fall off of something, when I make bad choices, I'm the first to share that. So I think that your actions and your words show a lot in that regard. And then, when I am sharing, I'm usually asking, and I think that's a big part of it too, is asking them questions, as a coach, asking them questions and saying, hey, you should do this. And a matter of fact, my family is wise to that now. My husband will know, like, I'll start asking him questions. He's like frustrated about something. And I'll be like, oh, well, what has you frustrated? And he's like, oh, no, don't you coach me. Don't you coach me. Like, he knows I'm coaching when I ask questions versus giving advice. So it's funny, but all we can do is ask the questions and hold the space and hope that we've created a space where they feel, vulnerable enough to share and to ask.
Yeah. And I love the words you said, hold that space, because let's say right now, guys, you hear something that Angie said and it's like, wow, that is profound. I am going to go out there and I'm going to save all my friends. Until you gain permission to do that, and this is where I see mistakes happen, including myself. Of course, I've made this many times. If you don't gain permission to say, hey, do you mind if I offer a piece of guidance? Or would you mind if I gave you my perspective? If you don't ask for that feedback that you're giving will not be received well. And we do it all the time, right? I see girlfriends get together and they're talking, and then a girlfriend spouts in like, blah, 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 blah. She's like, whoa, I wasn't asking for your opinion. I was simply venting. And as a guy, this is one of the greatest challenges I had as a husband, was not to listen, but rather trying to fix. Yeah. And instead now just to listen. How do you gain permission with your clients, with your kids, whomever it is? Do you have a process that you go through, or is it that asking questions is how you kind of go about it?
I do love to ask questions, but I also, and I tell my clients this and I use it too, I'll literally say to somebody, are you sharing with me for me to listen and for you to vent, or do you want some feedback or coaching? I'll just flat out ask them, and people say, no, I'm just frustrated and I want to vent. Okay, great. Or they'll say, well, no, I want your perspective, or I want to know what's going on here. And then I clearly know, but we've got to get those expectations of why somebody is sharing with us, or we're flying blind here. We're using our own agenda to kind of navigate that conversation. So I love to just ask, are you venting, or, do you want some feedback here? And that kind of opens the door. And sometimes they don't even know until you ask them. They have to think about it. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, I kind of just want to vent. Hey, let me know if you want to talk about it later, if you actually want to have a discussion. So I love that process. And I tell my clients to use that, because I've had, especially my guys, because they struggle with that too, JM, of going I don't know what I'm supposed to join in on their misery, support them, give them advice or what. So just ask. But the point about not giving that unsolicited advice, and you probably experience this too, so many people make these changes and they start loving what their life is looking like. And they're like, all right, how do I tell my wife this? Or how do I tell my husband this? How do I get my friends on board? And it's whoa, you don't just go selling them, because it's pretty much look how great I am now and I can help you change. And how is that received? I'm just model it. And people will eventually say, what have you been doing lately? You seem so, mellow. You're never stressed anymore. You seem so happy, relaxed. What's going on? People will see your change, and then they'll ask for help.
Yeah, the retreat high when you go through this experience and you're just ready to go. And I'm just going to purge on everybody, and they all shut down because they didn't experience what you just went through. Right?
Yep. Yeah.
I have to ask I'm sorry. Go ahead. Do you have something?
Go ahead.
I
was just going to say, and then
go ahead.
One thing I was just going to say, and then you get people who are like, wow, I really outgrown my friends, but it's almost like they've created that gap because they've come on so strong about how great they are and where they are. It's we need to give people a little bit of time to recalibrate and figure out where we are, and if they want to kind of join in that journey. But it can be a quick, fault, or I don't know, pitfall to look at how much you've grown, instantly cut everybody off because they haven't gone through that same journey.
Yes, it is so key. So if you guys are coming back from this podcast, or you went and had something with Angie, that retreat high is real. Just be aware of it. I want to ask you on the co-owner of a global alternative investment firm. I don't know what that means. So educate. I am asking, giving permission. Tell me what the heck that is. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it's my husband and I actually own it together. Started in 2003. I came from the financial space, Morgan Stanley, and it's a commodity firm. It's alternative investments, or more commodities, futures, contracts, supply and demand issues. So it's an investment firm where we trade people's capital, and it's global. So we trade markets in every single country there is. We're trading, African markets and, European markets, New Zealand, and all sorts of things. So it's, I come from the financial world, and I love the numbers. And that was where I really started doing a lot of my coaching as well for brokers. And I'm still involved in it from an owner perspective, but most of all my work is done in the coaching space now.
Very cool. What are you working on right now that is really just fueling that fire, that's giving you something where you're like, whoa, this is something that I'm really diving into right now? What are you seeing out there that's really cool for you?
I am working on kind of the second phase, another book, but also kind of more the methodology, the second phase of my coaching. The Non-Negotiable You is really about working on the person and getting them to that ideal level where they kind of above all the noise and the nonsense, and they actually have the abilities to accomplish what they want. And then the second part that I'm bringing out, that I do with clients already, but really putting out into the world, is the choose your seat space of it. Just now you are who you need to be, but where do you want to be? What do you want to be accomplishing in your life? You want your $5 million company to be a $50 million company? Do you want, your sport to go to that pro level? Do you want that promotion at your job? Whatever it is, let's now get you into an action-oriented position of choosing that seat that you want to be in.
That's cool, because I don't still know what I want to do when I grow up. That's kind of my running joke, is like, because there's so many cool things to be doing, to have somebody really ask these deep questions to say, look, here's your lifestyle now. Do you want to bump it up financially, spiritually, relationship wise? That guidance is, or at least that that bounce off, I think is missing so often in relationships. It's huge. What do you what are you seeing with AI, and how are you using it in your space today, if at all? I'm curious if you've really grabbed on to whether it's Chat GPT or undetectable AI or all the AIs that are out there. Are you using it in your space? And if so, how?
Yeah, I actually was on News Nation the other day doing a piece on this about AI taking over kind of some of the freelance type of jobs, your copywriters, your social media content people, even your editing, those type of things. So we are using it more from a place of helping clients grow. So I work with a lot of business owners and a lot of people in real estate too. And so when they're struggling on these pieces, it's like, okay, well, have you tried this? Have you put that through property descriptions through Chat GPT? You're beefing up your resume. Have you put that through there? You know, there's so many great tools. I feel like every day I'm seeing a new prompt and way to use it, which is fascinating. Fortunately, I have a team that's helping me out constantly. I'm like, check into this, look into this. What's it do? How can it help us? But I think it's really, really neat to have that technology and increase the efficiency, especially for some of these business owners who, you know, are a 1 or 2 person business and just don't have the capacity to like sit and learn and be able to, you know, be pros at something like that.
Yeah, it's clearly use it to your advantage because it's not going anywhere. I love that idea. Like, look, this is not something to be afraid of. This is something to embrace and know that this is going to be a part of our world from here moving forward, and it's going to accelerate.
It is.
I have 2 last questions that are really
Sure.
burning. Anybody that writes a book, I'm guessing, it's just a guess, and with your knowledge, your top 3 favorite books that have really shaped your mindset, your philosophies in life. Do you have that top 3 that just ready to go?
Gosh, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, like one of my all-time favorites. Definitely. Brene Brown, Dare to Lead, as far as leadership. I think she's amazing. And Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now, as far as like life-changing for me. That was a big, big pivot for me when I learned how to be present. And again, not those books because of necessarily the writing style of the author or anything, but just what they contain and how much they contributed to my life, personal development, peace, leadership, all of it. Like, love those books and always recommend them.
Yeah, that's, I just
What
had
are yours?
2. Ooh, throwing it back at me. So Man's Search for Meaning, probably my all-time favorite. Mindset. Carol Dweck absolutely crushed it. Man, the third one is always a hard one. I guess it depends on the space I'm in. I'm going to say The Advantage for a business book. I think Lencioni crushed that book. I thought it was brilliant. Of course, Think and Grow Rich. I read every year as I do Man's Search for Meaning, just for perspective. But I guess those would be my favorites.
Noted.
Last question for you.
Yeah.
What didn't I know enough to ask you that you're like, dude, come on. Yeah, we got to share this with the audience before we end this interview. What did I miss, Angie, that you're just like, we got to give it to them before we end?
Gosh, I think I just want people to really understand and be inspired that, you know, and I think you and I are both on the same page, that it's not about how to do things. It's about who you are. And I think a lot of people miss that. They look for all of these tools and tips for like time management or strategy. And it's all the what pieces and the how to pieces, you know, and those are tools, which are fine, but the tools are only as good as the person who's using them. And that's why it's so important that every single person listening, if you want to be better at something, you have to be working from the best place from yourself first. And that was the whole meaning behind, the book that I wrote and the work that I do with clients. They can be the number one lawyer or one of the top people, in their business, in their industry. But it's like, how are you as a person? That's where you've got to start your work.
Truer words have never been spoken. I'm telling you right there, because you've seen extremely successful people that are completely miserable, as have I.
Yep.
And that saddens me. I've seen people without a pot to piss in, happy as can be. Which life would you rather have? For me, I want to be happy. And it's money is not the direction either way. It's really, to your point, get quiet, know who you are. Angie, I think you're brilliant. I love that your book is coming out. Congratulations. People want to find you. They want to reach out to you. They want to find your books. Where's the best place for them to connect with you online?
Absolutely. AngieWisdom.com. Easy name to remember. AngieWisdom.com is my website. YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. It's all Angie Wisdom. And the book is on Amazon. So get yourself a copy and start creating the non-negotiable you.
I didn't ask this. I definitely go check her out. Wisdom. Is that your married name? Is that where it's a brilliant name for what you do?
I get that question every time. I don't think I ever end a conversation without that question being asked. It is my married name. Yes. So wasn't my birth name, but it's also not my stage name. It was married.
Well, Mr. Wisdom, brilliant name. She has embraced it fully. Angie, you're awesome. I appreciate you coming on, sharing all of your thoughts. And it's just, I think it's so impactful what you're doing. And I just love the way you showed up.
Thanks, JM.
You guys, go check it out. So many things that she talks about, we have talked about on the show, and yet with a little different spin. And I think that's brilliant because her lens is slightly different than mine. And you can apply these tools, use them to your advantage so you can truly be you. Share this with someone you know and love and care about because they want to be fulfilled. I promise you. And everything Angie talked about was exactly that. Until next time, remember your mindset matters. I appreciate y'all. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, JM Ryerson.